The MotoGP paddock is preparing to head into its next chapter. At the end of April 2026, the championship arrives in Spain for the Spanish Grand Prix at Jerez, the fourth round of the season and the beginning of the long, unforgiving European campaign. From Friday, April 24th, the engines will roar once again around Circuito de Jerez before the main race unfolds on Sunday, April 26th. But for many fans, this weekend feels different. There is a strange silence hanging over the paddock, a silence that once would have been impossible. Francesco Pecco Bagnaia's name is no longer the center of every conversation. Just a year ago, Bagnaia was the man everyone feared. He was Ducati's golden weapon, the rider who had turned the Desmosedici into an unstoppable force. He entered every race weekend carrying the aura of a champion, a rider who seemed destined to dominate for years. But now, in the opening stages of the 2026 season, something has broken. The same rider who once controlled every corner with ice-cold precision now looks lost, frustrated, and increasingly invisible. The first 3 races of the season have been a nightmare. Instead of fighting for victories, Bagnaia has been struggling merely to survive inside the top 5. While other names continue to rise, his has slowly faded from the headlines. The anger among Ducati fans is growing. How could a rider who was expected to lead the next era suddenly collapse so dramatically? How could the most powerful bike on the grid become a prison for its own champion? Inside the Ducati garage, the tension is impossible to hide. At the center of the crisis is the new Desmosedici GP26. During pre-season testing, Ducati appeared confident. The bike looked fast, stable, and nearly untouchable. Yet, when the real races began, the illusion shattered. Bagnaia no longer trusts the front end of the motorcycle. Every time he attacks a corner, there is hesitation. Every time he brakes late, there is fear. The main problem appears to come from the electronic mapping and the braking system, which no longer work in harmony with Bagnaia's aggressive riding style. The motorcycle reacts in unpredictable ways just as he enters the corner, the most critical moment of any lap. In Thailand and again in the United States, the problem became painfully obvious. Bagnaia pushed harder, desperate to recover the speed that once made him untouchable, only for the GP26 to betray him. Every time I try to push, the bike gives me a strange reaction. Those words carried more than frustration. They carried panic. For a rider like Bagnaia, confidence is everything. Without trust in the front tire, without faith in the brakes, every corner becomes a gamble. And in MotoGP, a rider who hesitates for even a fraction of a second is already defeated. But the technical problems are only part of the story. The deeper wound is psychological. Since Marc Marquez entered Ducati's world in 2024, the atmosphere around Bagnaia has changed completely. Suddenly, he is no longer the unquestioned king of the garage. Every mistake is magnified. Every weak result becomes another weapon for his critics. Meanwhile, satellite Ducati riders like Marco Bezzecchi and Jorge Martin continue to deliver fearless performances, making Bagnaia look even more vulnerable. There was a time when Bagnaia stood at the front of Ducati's empire. Now he looks like the last Ducati rider in the queue. That is what hurts the most. The pressure is crushing him from every direction. The media asks whether he is still capable of leading Ducati. Fans wonder if his era is already over. Inside his own mind, Bagnaia is fighting a war far more dangerous than any rival on the racetrack. The champion who once raced with calm certainty now rides with visible anger, desperation, and fear. Then came another disaster: tire degradation. At the Circuit of the Americas, Bagnaia looked ready to fight near the front. For a few laps, it seemed as though the old Pecco had finally returned. But as the race entered its final stages, everything fell apart. His pace suddenly collapsed. The rear Michelin tire degraded unevenly, destroying the bike's balance when leaned over in the corners. Lap after lap, he became slower, more helpless, more furious. What began as hope ended in humiliation. Watching Bagnaia in those closing laps was painful. The body language said everything. He was no longer attacking, he was surviving. Riders he once dominated swept past him without resistance. The camera caught his face after the race, and there was no sign of the confident champion who once ruled MotoGP. Only exhaustion, only anger, only disbelief. And perhaps that is the most shocking part of this entire story. Nobody is talking about Bagnaia anymore. The headlines belong to Aprilia's rise. They belong to Marc Marquez, to Jorge Martin, to the new generation of riders who are hungrier, more ruthless, and more fearless than ever before. Meanwhile, Bagnaia's name is slowly disappearing into the background. For a rider who stood at the top of the world, there is no greater pain. Ducati team manager Davide Tardassi continues to defend him. He insists that Bagnaia has the mental strength to recover, that champions don't simply forget how to win. Perhaps he is right. Perhaps Jerez will be the place where everything changes. Perhaps the Ducati engineers will finally solve the braking and electronic issues. Perhaps the updates to the swing arm and aerodynamics, weaknesses that Jorge Martin himself reportedly highlighted, will give Bagnaia the confidence he desperately needs. But time is running out. MotoGP never waits for anyone. If Bagnaia cannot fight back soon, the 2026 season may become the year his reign truly ended. The legendary Nuvola Rosa may either rise once more in Spain, stronger and angrier than ever, or disappear forever beneath the weight of pressure, mistakes, and broken confidence. At Jerez, the world will finally discover which version of Francesco Bagnaia still remains.